Hello everyone and thank you for joining me. I am back with, the first review in Scribble for this year. Well, not actually first, but the first that I do with a fountain pen that I also review. Like it or not, no matter on what side of the wall you are, you have to admit that LAMY Safari fountain pens are one of the most iconic fountain pens in the world. Definitely a hit in the world of fountain pens. They are still loved even, 44 years later now? As far as I know, these fountain pens have been released on the market since 1980. Please correct me if I'm wrong. Basically, these things have been around for as long as I have. Originally built for student use, the Safari is a very simple and no-nonsense design that can be easily used and operated. It comes with a simple, stiff but usable clip attached to a cap that can be easily and very quickly be removed and posted. Posts deep and secure and recaps in place with a very nice, subtle but satisfying short click. It can easily take a cartridge and converter, even though the converter unfortunately most often is not included with the fountain pen and needs to be purchased separately. The section is clean as well, long, and it has two straight cutouts that originally was designed to help students keep the fountain pen in correct orientation. Unfortunately, this feature is also one of the main points while a lot of users cannot use it and completely dislike it. Personally, I have no issue using it and I think it gives a unique design to the fountain pen. I would have disliked it more if they have introduced a third cutout under the section. Fortunately, they decided to keep it rounded. The other feature of the fountain pen that it's appreciated is the fact that it has an ink window or cutoff on both sides of the barrel. And unlike a lot of other fountain pens out there, these windows are quite large and useful, making it very easy to check ink levels on your pen. Despite the fact that I do have a converter, I decided for today to use one of the cartridges that came with the fountain pen. I'm trying to use up all the cartridges I have gathered over the years, and you might be seeing me using them a little bit more often. One thing that I find annoying with the cartridges though is that sometimes the ink takes a long time to get flowing properly through the nib, and if you are in a rush, you might have to keep on finding ways to force it flow. One trick that I'm doing usually, if it gets very annoying and takes too long, I try and run a thin brass sheet between the tines and help guide the ink towards the tip. But not before I actually squeeze the converter the hell out of it, which is sometimes is even more annoying because that plastic, depending on the converter and the brand, it's actually quite hard to squeeze. Once I got it flowing though, I had no issues with the nib while doing the writing test. It actually wrote nice and smooth without a skip, and to my surprise it worked quite nicely on reverse as well. And since the new paper that I started to use it's a little smoother than the previous one, the experience is even more pleasant. I started to use paper that I bought from the Muji store, which is actually quite pleasant to use, even though to be honest I kinda missed the old notebook that I had. Even though the paper was a little bit cheaper, it had its own charm, let's say. So, a new year where I started to use a new paper for my writing samples, but also a new year where I started to use new paper size for my drawings. The brand is pretty much exactly the same as the paper that I've been using for the past 2 years, but way larger in size, at least for what I'm usually used to. This paper doesn't even fit in properly in the scanner that I have, so scanning the images should be interesting. About 5mm hangs out of the scanner, so I'll have to pay attention on how I do my drawings and account for that in the future, hopefully. I am actually wondering if by any chance I bit more than I can chew. Some of the drawings that I used to do on the older paper size took me like 2-3 hours to complete. How long is gonna take me to finish a drawing on this one, especially if I'm gonna go a little bit more complicated. I'm definitely going to try and keep drawing at this size for the rest of the year, but if things might end up taking too long depending on the time that I have, I might switch back and forth between the sizes. I don't want to do that though, that sounds a lot like quitting somehow, so I will try and keep myself at this size for as long as possible. I might just have to keep my drawings a little bit simpler, maybe. So basically following that idea, for today I started with an idea of something simple to try and acclimate myself with this new larger size. And since I really like the results on my last Scribble session video, where I end up with some sort of a monster, I decided to try and make another one. The problem is that last time I did it completely by accident, and now I'm actually trying to force myself to do one, and obviously no idea comes to mind. So I actually end up sitting in front of the paper for about 30 minutes before starting to do anything. I have to admit, a big white piece of paper kinda scares me a little bit. I actually had to push myself a little bit by using a pencil first to get me started with some sort of fluid shape or lines on the page. But once I got into it, I have to admit that I actually really enjoyed it, and I think I got something interesting out of it, I think. Kind of excited for the next one, whatever next one will be. It looks like I like 6-eye monsters with only 3 visible so far. One other thing that I noticed is that working with a larger piece of paper, it's forcing me to use my hand a little bit different. Some parts I am forced to move my hand from the shoulder rather than elbow or wrist. Interesting, I guess, and good workout. I never really use my shoulder this much while doing a drawing, and I feel it a little bit once I was done. And the other thing, I am much looser with my lines, and working on detail is much easier since I basically can scale up and don't have to do very thin lines, which works very good for working with a fountain pen in the end. Speaking of the fountain pen, I have to say that I had no issues with it. The nib is a little bit stiff and maybe not on everyone's liking, but it didn't bother me at all. And I think it could use a little bit of polishing, feels ever so slightly scratchy depending on the handle that I'm holding the nib at. And that cartridge seems to hold quite a bit of ink. I did not manage to finish it, but I was not too far from it either. I'm just under a quarter left in there. A little bit of regret that I did not use a gray or black ink, because some parts of the drawing I would have wanted them to be darker than I got them. No matter how much I layered it, I could not get any darker. On the next one I will be using something else. Maybe me sticking with the cartridges for a while might not work too well. Anyway, I think this is where I'm going to stop my ramblings, and I will let you enjoy the rest of the Scribble, whatever is left out of it. If you have any comments, as usual, please leave them below and I will reply to them as soon as I get the chance. I wish you all the best, a wonderful day or night wherever you are, and take care. Bye!